You turn down or mute yours, please. Oh, I start recording, everybody. Yeah. No.
Testing. Thank you all for coming tonight. This is going to be a two-part series. We have Zoom and we have in person as well. So we have a lot to cover. So we're going to ask everybody, if you have questions after we get through, if you could just wait to the end and ask the questions then. But right now, we would like to have everybody stand up so we can do the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ready, Joe?
Yep.
I'll start. Good afternoon, everyone who's joining us in person. For those of you at home, I think we have about 50 people joining us via Zoom. I'd say there's probably 60 people joining us here in person. I want to thank everyone for coming out today. We did distribute the financial outlook for the 2022 as well as a budget for 2023. Admittedly, as we look through towards 2023, when we start throwing on the effects of COVID the last number of years, we start looking at the various challenges as we look forward. A lot of thought and professional minds looked over. Testing. Yeah, there's an echo somewhere back there. Oh, Jim must have got it. So the budget, as we are presenting it, is still in draft form. This is a really important meeting for us to hear feedback, to listen to what everyone has to say. For those of you on Zoom, we would encourage you after the presentation, type in your questions and we'll answer those as we go through it. I have Jerry Solomon, who's our treasurer. He'll be presenting some of the items as it relates to reserves, a couple of other items, a couple of housekeeping things. If you would all silence your phones, we'd appreciate that. That just helps us get through the presentation a little bit easier. So, all right, with that, I'll share the screen so that we can take a look and follow along. All right. All right. So what we're going to cover today is here in the agenda. We're going to go over the financial forecast for 2022 versus 22 budget, 23 draft budget versus the forecast, 2023 assessments, project funding status, the reserve fund update, status of multi-settlement funds, other discussion items such as resale fees and CDD financial impact items. We do have some departmental year-to-year slides, so if we want to get into those, and then certainly take the questions as we go forward. So really, as we went through the goals for this year, our goal was to get the baseline increased to 10%, while providing the homeowners the experience they desire. It was very important as we started this process to look through every line item to ensure that we evaluated how it would be affected next year because of the opening a little bit later in the season from the food and beverage department to the construction project to really looking back to 2019 was the last full year that we've had. With the QCA assessments, the master assessment will increase 15.3%. The capital project fund fee for the second loan accounts for 5.9 points of the increase. Insurance accounts for an additional 3 percentage points of the increase. So the base increase is at that 6.4%. The capital project fund fees will be included in quarterly assessments in 23. The increase on 3% of the first loan for $773. per door, and then in 2022, the $796 per door. In 2023, the $325 per door for the second loan for the total capital cost of $1,121. The next thing that we have up there is the food and beverage operations. We definitely want everyone to have their expectations set appropriately. Great news is our food trailer did arrive today. So we're going to be working diligently to get that up and going here as quickly as possible. We see that mobile food kitchen. So we're looking at, Tina's looking at having some really cool things done to jazz it up a little bit. I know Chef Ron's excited to get that going. The new pavilion will be used for dining. We have a pager system that you'll be able to get. Of course, Stan's Tiki Bar has been utilized quite a bit here since it's been open. I just do want to pause for a second. One of the things that does happen in our community, which is great, you know, we had homeowners come out and build Stan's Tiki Bar. We had homeowners come out last week, Monday, to help repair some chairs and do some things like that. All of these things that we're putting together has so much homeowner input as we move forward and so much homeowner help. And I, as the manager, certainly appreciate that. The next one, the new wellness center will double as a venue for activities as appropriate. So what we're looking at doing once the update from John Strike here comes a little bit later on, we'll see how the wellness center is going to open here probably early December, but also how we're able to utilize it for a club card room, something like that. Now we get into the 2022 forecast and 2022 budget for revenue. Again, the assessments are as planned. The resale fees, home sales, the activity is slowing. We have to be careful with this. We're watching it very closely on a month-to-month basis. Jerry will get into a little bit of that as far as where we're at with the capital project funding. The other items, as we roll down, you know, we had a little bit better food and beverage kind of first quarter, if you will, as everyone just before we shut down April 1st. And then really the $100,000, $103,000 food and beverage is what's driving that increase in revenue so far. 2022 forecast expenses versus 22 budget expenses. There is a caveat to this in case you missed it. There was a hurricane a couple of weeks ago. So this might change a little bit. And I said a little bit as far as expenses for cleanup costs. We're trying to mitigate and pare down other expenses to still try to bring this in right where we had planned. We started looking at cost of food sales, certainly higher than we would like. It's really because of the opening and closing that we went through in that April timeframe that throws off our cost of sales. We look at salaries and benefits. We are going to, I think, come in pretty much close to budget on that one. We did make significant scale backs due to the closure as far as eliminating or furloughing certain staff positions. The administration comes in as planned. The insurance, again, for this year, even though we budgeted 120, we'll come in at 156. Again, in our operations, we're absorbing that increase, again, trying to break even there. Utilities, all of us have seen electric in particular have gone through pretty high. You'll see that reflected in next year's budget. Contracts seem to be right on budget. Repairs and maintenance. This is a big one that some people have asked about. Where's the big discrepancy of the $151,000? Some people in particular have asked about China glass and silver for $95,000 for next year. What we've done is we had planned on purchasing that this year. We've delayed that expense and pushed it into next year. The other thing that we did is we did not do hardwood trimming this year, saved about $40,000. We will be doing hardwood trimming and palm trimming next year. The reserves as planned and the project transfers. All in all, the operating expenses show about $53,000 over budget. But again, we do anticipate we're going to do our best as we roll to the end of this year to try to beat that if we can. So for a net income, we'll be showing $156,000. That surplus is rolled into the 2023 budget. Next, we have the 2023 draft budget versus 2022 forecast revenue. This is a good indicator of where we're going in next year, where the increases are. The master increase is really just set off the expenses and the revenues. So there we see the 15.3 total master and neighborhood increase. Resale fees and amenity fees. We do have additional amenity fees being collected from the new homeowners that have moved in this year. That's why that increased. Reserve and income, Jerry will cover in a little bit. The food and beverage. I have to admit, we put a lot of calculated professional opinions into this. Having a food truck is something new for us. Having 1 quarter as we move towards the 4th quarter of this next year. Again, it isn't in season like we were this year, January through April. We'll be going October through December. So we are speculating on how much the revenue will be. We're going to be very flexible in our expenses to match the revenue as it comes in for food and beverage. We do have a boat, dock, and trailer increase, 10% increase. One of the things with this, I do want to recognize Billy Joe. Since she's been taking this over, we have seen a tremendous increase in this, making sure that when someone wants to get a boat slip, she's calling them, getting them in there. So it is very beneficial to our community to have her running that. One of the things that we will be doing as far as the new payment process for our dock and trailers is we're going to be billing people in November, and we're asking them to pay as of January 1st. If they don't pay by February 1st, there'll be an increased fee, and by March 1st, there'll be an increased fee. So ideally, everyone pays up by January 1st. That's the whole goal. Then we have the other revenue. This is where we see that silver and glassware come in from the year past. So that's important to recognize that the other didn't just go up, but it's in there. 2023 draft budget. Again, we're under expenses. Our food cost, we are working on our food cost, bringing it down to 48%. We think the food truck or food trailer will have a good food cost. We believe that as we roll into the 4th quarter, being very efficient, professional culinary team will help us with that as well. Salaries and benefits. This is one, when I started putting it together, I looked at this line probably about 551 times. This was a surprise for me when I started doing the original calculations, but then I started getting into a little bit further of why it was such a large increase. As number one, we were closed for essentially 9 months of food and beverage this year, where we are going to be open in some capacity for food and beverage all 12 months next year. We started looking at hiring full-time positions such as an executive chef, sous chef, hiring people such as dining room managers, food and beverage directors, things like that, to bring our new project to life, if you will. We've had those positions in the past. Really, this represents, I think it was a total of 3 new positions, Jerry, or was it 2? I think.
For the kitchen, I think it was 2.
Hey, Scott, can you hear me?
Hey, John.
Your slides are not advancing online. There's a lot of people commenting on it.
Got it, thanks. I'm trying to be the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain, doing everything. So the salaries and benefits, we've ran a pretty extensive spreadsheet as far as what we had in the past, going back as far as 2019, 1st quarter of this year when we were fully staffed, how many bartenders we had, how many dishwashers we've had, taking a look at the expected sales and matching and ramping up our staff. In other words, for instance, hiring a full-time executive chef. One would say, hey, look, we have a food trailer, let's get an executive chef so they can start planning. We've delayed the permanent hiring until I think it's August of next year. We've really tried to do that with a number of food and beverage positions. So as opposed to saying, hey, look, June 1st, July 1st, hire everybody. We've essentially delayed a lot of those hires into next year. So that way, as we roll through next year, we're bringing on the staff at a graduated rate to meet the sales. So there is also training. As you would any machine, you would not start it without gasoline and oil and priming the engine. You want to make sure that we have a well-trained staff and they have time to do that. Generally speaking, you look at, say, an Outback Steakhouse across the street. They had 45 days of training before they served one meal. So keep that in mind. 45 days, zero revenue, full labor cost. So we are not planning on 45 days. We're a lot tighter than that, but that's what a corporate restaurant who kind of knows what they're doing when they open new places would do. So we start moving on. We're on the administration. We have holiday decorations we scaled back a little bit because we didn't have all the buildings this year. Now they're coming back online. Web page development. That's something that as we get into the new web page, one of the things that Tina has been working on really, really hard and done a good job. We do have a web page up. It's I think in great shape. One of the things that she's working with is connecting to the Jonas system. So just as the golf club, you're able to look at your chits right away that evening when you get home. We'll have that feature on our website moving forward. You'll also notice we have reservation systems for whether it's bocce, it's pickleball, really quick link tabs. The other thing that we felt was important, I don't know a lot of people that don't look at our website through their phone. So we've optimized our website so it's easily used on your cell phone. So you can go in there, make a pickleball court reservation right on your phone, and it's a lot more user friendly. So thank you, Tina, for putting that together and getting that going. The insurance. I'll pause there when I take a look at that number of the increase of $110,000. I think if we go back 3 years, Jerry, 2 years.
I'm looking up.
And Jerry's looking it up, but I think we were at 65,000 when I first got here 18 months ago. So you can see what's happening to that insurance cost. Now, our insurance renews in February of next year. What I'm concerned about is what the effects of the hurricane will have on our rates. So there is admittedly, this is the quote that we have from our agent at this current time. Jerry, do you have that number?
Can you hear me? Yeah, unfortunately, the quote from the agent, and it's just his best estimate, but that was before Hurricane Ian. And that quote was 285,000. It doesn't start on January 1st, so that's why the number is a little bit different. But I suspect with the hurricane impact, we're probably now going to see a higher number, but who knows?
Yeah. And just as a new person in Florida for the last 5 or 6 years, anytime a hurricane with I comes in, I'm leaving. Don't look for me. So we have utilities as the next large increase, really driven a lot by electricity. I think you're seeing it at your own homes or if you have businesses. Those utility rates are going higher. Contracts. I'm proud of the fact that we went back, we looked at our contracts, we've rebid a number of them. We've locked in some of them for a 0% increase for 2023. So it's, a relatively decent increase of what it could be out there. When you think of our contracts, most of them are made up of labor, and the labor market here in Naples is extremely, extremely high. I did want to pause for one other thing. Bob is in the back. Bob, I want to thank you and Jim very much for allowing us to use the golf club. I have to admit, every time I've reached out to the board of directors through Bob, they've been very generous through our construction project. Bob, thank you very much. I appreciate it. On to repairs and maintenance projects. Here we have the increase of spending for China glass and silver. We have hardwood trimming, which I said was delayed from last year to this year. And then to open a new restaurant, we have some restaurant supplies built into that. Reserves, Jerry will go through, and then the project transfers, Jerry will also go through that as well. So the total increase for total operating expenses, $1.5 million. It's a large number, but keep in mind, we haven't been open for a full season in almost 3 years. So, I think, Jerry, do you want to start on the project funding?
Thanks a lot, Scott. And while I'm doing this, maybe you could get some of the questions. So when we finish, I don't know if they're handing in a lot.
Yep, we have 6.
Okay. What I want to go through is how we're doing on the capital project fund fees, how we're doing in 22 versus what we put in the plan for the project. And we have 3 components. The first component We started off $750 a home in 2021. That goes up by 3% in 2022. So that's going to be right on plan. We're never going to deviate there. The next two, capital project resale fee and new homeowner amenity fees, they're more variable. They depend on the new home, number of new homes sales that take place. And we had a really good start in 2021. As Scott indicated, 2022 is slowing down, but nevertheless, through the first 2 years, we project that we're going to be either on plan or slightly above plan. So we're doing well there. And as a reminder for those of you that may not have been in previous meetings, we average 62 home sales a year, and for the plan, we just put in 50 home sales. We ratcheted down 20%. Going forward, next slide, Scott, please. In 2023, we bump up the capital project fund fee. That's the additional $325 we added. So that will now be in your quarterly assessment. Then the project resale fee and a new homeowner amenity fee. You can see we have a budget of $125,000. That assumes 50 home sales. You said, you know, there was a big article in the Naples News yesterday or the Sunday paper about home sales, and they really don't expect a slowdown, although I don't believe that. I suspect it'll be slow the next few months, but now the supply of housing due to an unfortunate incident is that much less. They expect to see fairly good activity. Whether that translates to the quarry, who knows? But we budget the same 50 home sales for 2023. And once you get ahead on new homeowner amenity fees, because that recurs every year and we got a head start, that'll be favorable in 2023. So again, those are important to pay back both the principal and the interest for the loan. Very critical for the community. Okay, the next slide are what we call our neighborhood assessments. And what we have is 4 separate areas. We have single family homes. We have what we call breakwater homes. We have custom homes, and we have condos or coach homes. They all have the same quarterly master fee, which is $1,593 in 2023, and that is per quarter here. Excuse me. Yeah, that is, everything here is per quarter. And then in addition to the master, which is the same for everyone, we have neighborhood fees. Each neighborhood pays somewhat of a different amount, depending on the work that we could attribute to the specific neighborhood, except custom homes and coach homes do not have a neighborhood fee. They just pay the master. Yes, Scott.
Sorry, Jerry, for interrupting. For those of you at home, it seems that my computer is not advancing the slides, even though it's doing it here in the room. If you go back to the email that Tina sent out earlier today at 11:37, there's a link with the slides that we're showing. So I would encourage you to follow along. Again, my apologies for not sending that out.
What we have in the blue is a comparison to what would be this current year's assessments. And you can see the increase. The master, as Scott alluded to at the beginning, is going up 15.3%, and anywhere from 14.3 to 16.3, just slight differences depending on which neighborhood you live in. The next slide, which you won't have at home. Oh yeah, you won't have at home. I don't believe you were the mailing. And Scott already spoke to this, but we just wanted to break out the difference between the 2022 budget and the 2023 budget. So you can see the impact of adding the capital project fund fee on a quarterly basis. It's $81, and insurance, which is $74. And we separate that because what's left when you subtract those two out is our base increase, which is 6.6%. So I think Scott and his team did a great job in trying to stick with our objectives, but got hit by one area, which was insurance, totally out of their control. And the other area, which is the increase in the capital project fund fee, was something the community voted on, given the increases we had on the project. Next slide, and I put this is the same slide since 2020. But I put it in here because we probably have some people that this is their first meeting regarding the budget. And just so you know that the quarry fully funds the reserve fund. And we do a reserve study every 3 years. The last one was May 2020. And the column on the left where it says reserve contributions, that's what we follow to the letter based on the reserve study. And as a result, you have projected reserve balances. And this study goes out 30 years, and it's basically how much will it cost to maintain the infrastructure, whether it's the irrigation system, the paving of the road, all the equipment we have in the various buildings, the roofs, etc. Because they all have a useful life, and we project when we're going to have to replace them and how much it's going to cost at that time. We were going to update this normally in 2023. However, with the project, we're going to wait until the project concludes, which will be towards the latter half of 2023. And when I say the latter half, that's not till we get every invoice in, every punch list item done. Because only when that's done, then they come out and look at the reserve, look at the facility, update all of our buildings and equipment, and do the projections. And that usually takes about 6 to 8 weeks, and then we review it. So we will not have this done in time for the 2024 budget. So the number for 2024 is going to be that 577,600. And the result of the new reserve study will go into effect in 2025. The next page is just a pictorial. The numbers aren't important. But what the reserve study does, the green bars and the green line, that's what it comes out on your computers, is basically the contributions, those are the green bars. And you can see they're just projected to go up in this particular study, 2.2% a year. The expenditures, on the other hand, happen very in a lumpy manner. And I say lumpy because there are certain things that we have that are very expensive. The two most expensive are, at some point, we have to redo the irrigation system for the whole community. And at some point, we have to repave all of the roads. And I always forget if it's 15 or 17 miles worth of roads. 17, thanks. So when we do that, that's a big expenditure. So the balance does fluctuate, but we always have a positive balance in line with what the reserve study says we need to be a healthy community. So I wanted everyone to understand that chart. And the last chart, relative to reserve fund balances, based on the 2020 reserve study, make sure it's the same color. Yeah, those are the orange bars. And if we continue to put the monies in the reserve fund as per the plan, we will have balances that exceed the reserve study recommendations. And there's a couple of reasons that we're going to keep doing that. What we would be normally doing right now is replacing a number of things. We would have been doing it last year, the year before, and next year that we're not doing. For instance, we would have replaced the rugs in the beach club, a lot of the furniture, some kitchen equipment, lighting. We would have painted some walls, gym equipment. But all of those costs are now being captured in the project. We're doing it anyway. So we're not taking money from the reserve fund. We've been very conservative in this regard. So if we keep putting the same amount of monies into the reserve fund as per the plan, we will exceed the target because we're not spending hardly anything. The other reason why we believe we need to keep doing that is once the new reserve study is done, we're going to have a lot more assets on campus. And so we expect the reserve study recommendations will naturally go up. How much, we don't know. But basically the difference between the height of those two bars is sort of what we call a cushion to give us a head start on any increase. So we just don't have any dramatic increase in our budget come 2025. Again, we won't know what those numbers are till we conclude the study at the end of 2024, but we're trying to position ourselves in order to ease any increase that the community might face due to the greater assets we have on campus. Hey, you were gonna do the next one, Scott?
For those of you at home, we're on the Pulte litigation settlement funded project status update. This will be like page 15 of your packet. So all total, we're looking at the $828,000. We have the funding that was originally planned, the current estimate, and then comments. This is a call to the community. I need help. I'll say that very clearly. I need help. The stone fascia on the bridges. I've tried to get a number of contractors to give me bids. If you have a licensed contractor who's insured and is willing to do a smaller project in today's climate, please have them contact me. And remember, it's over a named waterway. So they'll need specialty insurance for that. So therefore, I'm talking about the bridge stone fascia. I've had a number of bids come in for it, and they were astronomical. To redo the exterior fascia of the 3 bridges, I think the one bid I had was $240,000. So that's why I'm taking a little bit slower approach to it. I'm asking for anyone who has a contractor who may know of someone, please send them my way and I'll consider it. It is a high priority to fix those bridges. It's front and center. I realize it, but I just don't want to overspend to get them fixed. Number 2, install a permanent boat ramp. We have bids of $125,000. We had originally let the contract for one of them. That contractor did go out of business, so we're back to rebidding. We do have 2 other bids of contractors who are in the same ballpark. I do anticipate working with Pete Kenny and Peter Reitz on the Lakes Committee. We would anticipate that work being done in June of next year. Make sure all the permits are in place. Common area landscaping. So far, we spent about $30,000 to date to update some irrigation cellular timers. We do anticipate the balance of that going into a shade tree project or other items that the landscaping committee has recommended. The shade trees in particular are replacements from a different hurricane eye storm named Irma. So that's where that's coming from. Sidewalk and curb repairs. That's essentially an ongoing project as we grow throughout the number of years. Repair drainage irrigation system around the beach club. We have incorporated this into the project. If you've seen the way that phase 1 drains and phase 2 is starting, you'll notice a tremendous difference. Beach washout, erosion in that end is gone away. So really it's where we want it to be. Replace landscaping around the beach club. That's an ongoing project as well. We have the fun gate access control project. We'll get into the rear gate and the front gate tele-entry systems. We'll also, this funding includes new mechanicals at the back gate and the front gate. And also here, probably once we get the tele-entry system in place, we'll be removing the trap at the back gate. So I think we all know that our phones and maps send us to the back gate. So from now on, when your guests arrive, they'll have a way to access those with a tele-entry system 24 hours a day. Also, this does include at the front gate, you'll notice the pedestrian access. The way we closed up the rear pedestrian gates, we'll be doing that at the front as well. So that's what's included in this. That'll happen next year for 2023. Funding of limestone trail costs. You'll see we came in a little bit under what was originally funded. And then we have uncommitted contingencies of $94,000. Or actually not available. So anything else with the gates? Okay. So that's where we're looking to spend the full litigation. The next one, for those of you at home, slide 16, remote access control for gates. The front gate is currently manned 24/7, 365. In 2023, we'll be utilizing remote access and eliminate the manning of the gates from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. 7 days a week. To give you an idea, when we looked at the cameras, there was less than 10 cars coming through the gates in that 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. time frame. A week it was, okay. Joe has just commented that it may have been a week, not just a day. So the teleentry system will have a system so that is remote access. In other words, a guard who is at a monitoring station will be able to get contacted. You'll have one at the front gate, one at the back gate. And it's basically, you'll punch in a code, it'll dial your cell phone. You'll be able to allow your guests or your delivery men or your contractors in through that gate if they're arriving between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. we will have a live access control person there. The annual cost in the current manner would increase from $189,000 to $212,000 would have been the increase if we continued on the way that we were. So we're going to see a savings from this implementation of almost $66,000. Jerry, are you doing this one or you want me to? Okay, I'll keep going. Quarterly assessment due dates. Assessments are due on the 1st of each quarter. Assessments are delinquent if not paid by the 16th of the month, and collection letters are mailed 16 days after the due date. Just a reminder, this is probably one that Billy Joe and Jeremy and Tina get the most calls about, and now Maria. The first quarter assessment will include an additional $50 for the Heritage Bay Umbrella Association, as we've done in previous years. So when you see an extra $50, that doesn't go to me, that goes to the Umbrella Association. Ms. Laura Severance up here handles that money very wisely for us. So thank you. And oh, she's the president of the Heritage Bay Umbrella Association. So the next number of slides are really just sort of some backup. I think we probably handle it in the questions here. Yeah. So with that being said, I think that concludes the budget presentation. Hearing no questions, we'll move on to other. So again, those of you on Zoom, I'll try to read some of your questions and mix them in with questions from the homeowners. Donna, did we buy the food truck? What are the plans for it after the Tiki Bar opens again? So Donna, we are leasing the food trailer right now. There is an option to buy at the end when we're done with it. After the Tiki Bar opens again, we'll see how popular it is, and it may be something that we keep within our community. So as people are doing block parties or things like that, we may be able to utilize that food trailer in that aspect. So, when is the Tiki Bar open? Tiki Bar, that's a great question. I would say that the Tiki Bar is probably going to open in the June timeframe, but that's where John Strike, he's going to be following up with a Tomorrow and Beyond update here after we're done with the budget questions. Jerry, here's one for you from an anonymous attendee. Can you explain what makes up the reserve fund and project fees? It has one of the largest increase.
Okay, that question is mixing two things. The project fee, the reason it has a large increase is we added the $325 per home this year, and we didn't have it last year. On top of that, we increased last year's amount by 3%. So that was a small piece, but the biggest reason for the increase is the $325. The reserve fund really isn't going up much. It's only going up 2%. When I combine it with interest, it goes up more because we basically got very little to no interest this past year. We'll be getting some, I don't want to say reasonable, although comparatively speaking to prior years, it looks like a lot. You see 3% and you get excited now. Who would ever get excited about 3% interest rates? But we are investing that money in CD ladders. And so we're trying to get maximize our interest. So that's why you see it both on the revenue and the expense, but it's neutral to the budget because it all zeroes out. Hopefully that answered your question.
Okay. Thank you, Jerry, for that. Renee, I think this one's for you. I feel like a game show host. The limestone trail, hurricane trees that fell. What will be the timing to replace this landscaping? Does this fall into next year's tree planting or something sooner? That comes from Tom Bernardi.
Well, we're currently assessing and getting quotes on replacing, mostly Clusia that came down on Limestone Trail. This is something that's gonna be evaluated, and we're gonna look at our current this year budget and, make some crucial decisions where that decision has not been made yet, but it's a discussion that's taking place currently.
Okay, thank you, Renee.
Limestone Trail, I've always wondered.
Excuse me one second, sir. I'll be right there with a microphone. Sir, one question, then we'll go back to the Zoom.
No, I just wanted to know, what we're actually gonna do with Limestone Trail. I know it's a nice cut through, but if we own the whole thing, is there something more that we can do with that property that we own, or are we not allowed to? That's the question.
We're waiting to see who answers that one. I don't know if you had any ideas about that, but quite frankly, we're up to our eyeballs in the project right now. And financially, everything is challenged. So we currently do not have any plans for Limestone Trail at this point. Perhaps in the future, it is something that we could think about and people could brainstorm, but right now, there are no such discussions, Steve. Do you have any great ideas for it that cost nothing?
Dog park. Yes, you know,
So the question was brought up dog park. We have explored that. Unfortunately, with parking and the space needed for a dog park, it's not a reasonable place to put it. So the next question that we have comes from Kathy Benner and Gerard Benner. Do you know if other communities are projecting 70% insurance increases? Seems you serious? That's a new word for me. Realizing it's out of our complete control unless shopping makes any sense.
Hi, Gerard, and Kathy. I usually call up other communities to find out what increases they're going to be putting through. Only it's just a little bit, it's a few weeks early in the process to do that because they're still in the midst and didn't want to share any information yet. So I don't have the answer, but one of the things we have to realize, 14 insurance companies have left the Florida market this year and 6 have gone out of business. So we've lost 20 carriers. I don't know about you, but I experienced a big increase in my personal homeowners policy. And everything you read, it just gets worse and worse. So I hope by the next time we meet, I'll have some answers from other communities because I never like to do it in isolation in case we're missing something. And I'm sure Scott is going to assist and try to call some people he knows, but it's still very early in the process right now. We will eventually get that answer though.
Thank you, Jerry. I'll take 2 more questions on Zoom and then we'll do some here in the room and then get back to Zoom. Let's see here. From Steve Kaiser, for the QCA fee only, is it increasing by $844 per annum
Is it increased by $844 per what?
per year?
That's correct.
Steve, we're getting that answer now.
Yeah, it's the 211 times 4.
Yes, Steve, that is correct.
Yes. The master.
Here's one for me. What is the driving decision to hire full-time chef and or directors in the restaurant? Do you have sufficient demand for food to support full-time? And that comes from Charles. The answer there is yes, we will have it. And that's what, as I explained before, we're growing into that position. As we move towards Q4 of next year, we start ramping up. The process very simply is you hire an executive chef. It takes about a month to hire his staff. They take about a month to train, and then you open. So there's about a 90 to 120 day window in which you sort of ramp up to the restaurant opening for full service. So good question. But the answer is yes, we will have sufficient demand for that, particularly as we move into 2024.
Let me just add, Scott, that even though we're hiring these two positions, I know since the day I got to the community back in 2016, we've had the same two positions. So it's not an additional staff position. It's just getting back to where we were before we had to let everyone go for the shutdown.
Correct. Let's do some questions from in the room. Yes. And it helps if you direct all your questions to the board, then I don't have to answer.
Very good. You've given a very detailed explanation of the reason and rationale for increases on a lot of the line items. What I really didn't hear though was a reason and a rationale for the 10% increase in boat storage and marina fees, especially since it was stated that Billy Joe is doing such a wonderful job at the efficiency of running the operation. Please explain.
I had mentioned you should ask the board these questions, but I think this one. So what we are seeing is there in the repairs for our docks, marinas, things like that. So that's where we're seeing the repair costs go up. For instance, we just had this year alone, we've had to reattach the boat dock, I guess it would be. So that's where we're starting to see those expenses go up. We have had to make repairs to some of the, which letter was that, Billy Joe? Was that E that we repaired on East Quarry Drive? Is it B? So we're starting to see some of those docks come into disrepair, and that's where those funds are being directed.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The gates.
And gates and insurance and all those fun things. Other questions? All right, let's see if we have one more online. Here's one. Frank had asked, why is the salaries and benefit so much higher? He said the beach club was closed for 9 months, but is also basically closed until June of 23, along with wellness center will not be open. So the wellness center is actually scheduled, you'll hear from John here a little bit, will open in 2022. With regards to the salaries and benefits for food and beverage staff, as I mentioned, we have sort of that 90-day ramp up period. If you think about the first quarter this year, all the staff was hired. You started January 1st with a full staff. So there was no time in which you had training, you had all this expense for salaries going out with no revenue coming in to offset. You'll have some time next year where you have salaries going out and not a lot of revenue coming in. So that's where a lot of the difference is coming in when you're talking potentially 20, 30 days of training for staff, ramping up, hiring, all those types of activities are involved in opening a new restaurant.
Well, let me just add, in addition to that, even if we had the exact same staff, we would likely see a significant increase. I can't put a number on it, but wages and benefits for staff, especially in Southwest Florida, has gone up a tremendous amount. It's very hard to find staff. Don't know what it's going to be now after Ian. A lot of people lost both their homes and their jobs, whether they're going to move out of the area or not, we don't know. But getting staff here, I mean, the unemployment rate is so low. So we're all competing for a limited supply. So everyone's wages, whether it's salaried or hourly, have gone up quite a bit. And I'm sure Scott could give some more detail on that, but I don't want to miss that portion of it. It's not just the number of months or the number of people. It's the escalation we're seeing as well.
Sure.
How many people?
I'll just take one.
How many people are being paid, staff are being paid as of January 1st of 2023? In the,
I don't have that number right.
people are, you know, the waiters, waitresses, all that stuff.
I don't have that number right now. I'm happy to share tomorrow. You can stop by the office.
So 1 or 2, or is it everyone?
Well, everybody would be probably as of January 21st or January 1st, 23. You would have probably 2 or 3 people in the food truck, depending on what day it is. You'd have 1 person taking the orders. You'd have 2 bartenders and 1 person clearing the tables.
And so the chef and stuff doesn't get paid until the chef starts.
Well, we have a gentleman here who's our interim chef, Ron. So he does get paid, yes.
There's nothing else.
Well, it will be in 2 weeks, sir.
Yeah, hold. Just hold off until you hear John's, because you will see, we're gonna have food service. We have in the bar, it stands Tiki Bar. So we're gonna have a number of people there on the first, not a huge number, but we're gonna have the numbers to service the people the way they need to be serviced. So we're not waiting inordinate amounts of time. So, but hold off a little, we could come back. I just wanted to finish the one piece, Scott, where we're talking about wage rates.
Sure, let me share with something. So I was fortunate to attend a seminar with the top 100 club managers here in Naples. It's going back about 3 weeks. There was something that Doug Brown, who manages the community down the street, shared with me. So currently we have 120 private clubs or private communities between the airport, meaning RSW, and to Markham. It's 120 communities that are private, similar to us. If I have an FGCU student who wants to come work for us, there's 62 clubs between FGCU and our property. Okay, and I can tell you, for an FGCU student who Bob relies on here, or H2BVs, or whoever is serving you or attending bar or making drinks, for them to pass 61 other clubs for 50 cents more an hour, they're not doing it unless we're going to be the employer of choice. We have to invest in our employees. The turnover you're going to see in the next year and a half, 2 years could approach 50 to 60% if you're not doing the right things. That includes health insurance. It includes great training. It includes a good work environment. I'll tell you what you're doing at the beach club by building the new buildings, all great for you, but as a recruiter, it is a great tool for me as well. I go out, I go to the culinary, team and say, hey, look, you could come and work in a brand new kitchen as opposed to the old dark kitchen that you're working in now. That helps. Those things are intangibles. And those are things that we're trying to attract people. So that number is 62. I want them to go over 62 other clubs or communities to come to the quarry. That's what my challenge is. So when we start looking at the increases for labor and payroll, they're not as significant as what they may seem. And I don't say that lightly. When you think about the Southwest Florida labor market and where our employees can go, remember, you can't rent an apartment right now for $3,000. Like outside our back gates, those new ones, I think Bob or someone told me they're like $2,900. Well, if you're making $15 an hour, you're not going to live in Collier County. So there's a lot of challenges for our labor force. We must be, and Bob and I have talked about this a lot. We have to be, and we must be the employer of choice. And those are all the intangibles that we're working on.
The other thing is, the further they come, the higher the gas price, the more they're gonna want to be in a place that's closer to where they live. So we compete in an area that has high rent, probably high transportation costs. And when we look at our increases, bear in mind, Social Security just announced they're going up 8.7%. Our baseline, and granted, insurance should be included. So even if we include insurance, instead of that, I think I had 6.6, add the 3, 9.6. But very similar to what's going on with Social Security. So we think the team has really looked very hard to try to trim this budget. I can tell you, there were 11 passes to get this budget done. And it was going back to the well many, many times.
Mark asked if we could read the questions. Mark, I'll make sure I'm asking or reading the questions more for the folks at home. I have 2 more questions before I do. As Jerry alluded to, we had a number of passes at the budget. The gentleman in the black shirt back there, Jeremy, who's our community bookkeeper and controller. Jeremy has literally memorized these numbers from doing them so often. So Jeremy, thank you very much. There were a couple 12-hour days that he was working, trying to get this all done. And the other folks I'd like to thank is the Finance Committee. I see some of them here. You may want to stand, you may not. The Finance Committee really. I don't see the chairman here. Sue Cavateo here. Sue Cavateo led the Finance Committee. There were a lot of tough questions, both at me, for me, and just in general about our community. A lot of people looked at this, and a lot of very intelligent people put their hard work. So if you do see a finance person, thank them or hate them, whichever you like, but they did work hard on this. Next one, this comes from Frank. Jerry, I think you may have to take this one. Won't some of the increase be offset by a reduction in the loan payment with a new lower interest rate? I'm not sure we have lower interest rates.
Our interest rates, actually, it's on the contrary. Until we get to the term loan, our construction loan is variable. And unfortunately, that interest rate has only gone in one direction up. And is probably going to go up again, either once or twice before the end of the year. So I'm not sure the genesis of this question, but we do not have any lower rates. We're very fortunate. We locked in our big loan at 3.49%. When we did, I spoke to our banker just the other day and I asked, what would it be today? She said, almost double that number. So that's a significant difference. So no, I wish we did have lower interest rates, but we don't.
Okay. I have two other questions and I think we'll wrap it up as far as the budget. Given that Beach Club, et cetera, won't be open for half of 2023, what is the approximate percentage increase in salaries and benefits you are projecting for 2024?
Interesting question. We haven't gotten to 2024 specifically to answer that particular question. However, for the first time, we did ask Scott and his team to start a base plan for 2024, and they actually did pass number one for 2024, which is going to be a dynamic plan that's going to change as we go through this year. But the team does have an objective to keep the increase, what do we say, 10%? In 2024, they did a first pass, so they have an idea what the challenge is. So all the because sometimes you make decisions in 2023, you're locking in what's going to happen in 2024, and we wanted to get ahead of that. So it's a great question, really appreciate it. And the team understands those goals, but we're just sitting here trying to lock down 2023, not prepared to answer specifics on 2024, because God knows a lot's going to change between now and then anyway. But it's a great question.
Jerry, another one, $95,000 new expense for China silver and glassware seems excessive given this is all new expense. Given the impact of the capital project fund fees and loans on the next year budget, we question why any new staff positions would be added for 2023. There should be no staff expansion in 2023, rather assess need based on actual revenue and expense experience in 23 and then adjust in 2024.
Okay, there are a lot of parts to that question. Let me take the second half. Don't add expense till we see the revenue. Unfortunately, when you do that model, you guarantee low revenue because you disappoint every customer that comes in. You don't have the staff, and once they have an unpleasant experience, we've all heard this many times, they don't come back. And we have a lot of history of information of how many people come when, and that's one of the reasons why. And you may hear this from John, I don't know the latest changes due to Hurricane Ian, but we anticipated the beach club being completed in early summer, but we weren't going to open for food till October 1st because we didn't want to add the staff before most people start returning to the quarry, because we would have had excess costs when not needed. So we believe the team is prudent in their plans in that regard. The first part of the question, help me again with the first, there was something about, the 95,000 for the China silver and glassware. When you look at what we're going to spend to replace everything, it looks like a lot, and the number is still an estimate. I know we have a separate team meeting with suppliers and going through and doing selections. But I want people, if you go back on those spreadsheets, which I know you all probably love and study each evening when you're trying to fall asleep, But what we spent for China silver and glassware the last 3 years is we didn't spend much at all. I mean, there were requests to, we need to add this, we need to add that. And we cut back all spending as much as possible because we knew we would be replacing everything with the project. So it's really an accumulation of what we need new and what we didn't replace for the last 3 years. And I think in addition to China silver and glassware, help me out here, Scott, there's a few other items included in there as well, some miscellaneous items for the kitchen and whatnot. No, okay. He says I'm wrong, so I accept that because he knows a lot better than me. But again, we budgeted, I think, every year, 36,000 for China, silver and glassware. And I would venture to guess we spent between 10 or 15. We held back on 15 to 20,000 every year. Did I get the entire question?
Thank you, Jerry. I appreciate that. Now. What's that? I was done, but are you?
One more.
Just 1 second. So we have a question from the floor.
First of all, I just want to say I really do appreciate what the board's done. I think that the new Q-Bar setup has been fantastic, and I'd like to thank Joe and Rex and Jerry, and there was someone else who was involved in that, and I don't know who it was, the last name starts with an S.
John Strike and Phil.
John Strike.
Phil Morrow.
It's really worked out. I hope we don't tear it down afterwards. I think it's a great addition. My point is that we know everybody worked hard, and we know about inflation, but our fees have gone up 29%. If this other $250+ increase is approved, 29% less than a year. And I think that we really need, I think what's coming from the people, from the questions of the people who are on Zoom especially, is that we need to make the hard choices. Maybe it's not the time to buy this or that, or do this project or that project, because I think 23 is a special case. And I think that 2024, once the Tiki Bar opens and everything, will be a lot better, and we're gonna make a lot more money. So I just think that since this is a draft budget, if we could make some harder choices about whatever, I mean, there's a lot of stuff, but you know, it's a special time, and we're gonna go into a recession, and unfortunately, people are gonna lose their jobs, so that the worker pool will be better.
I'm not sure what you were referring to in terms of the 250. Is that the next discussion? Is that the next discussion item that you got?
No, it was just the increase that you're proposing to. We haven't gotten there yet. Good thing.
Thank you very much for that feedback. We appreciate it. Yes, sir.
Again, I echo appreciate all this detailed work. This is helpful, and I'd like to say quite the contrary. I think we've made a huge investment in the community. We are almost completing a great project with exciting 2023. And now we start to talk about being penny wise and pound foolish about labor and really the experience we're gonna have, right? To make all this investment and then to shortchange ourselves and Scott in the ability to hire quality staff, which is across all these industries. I can tell you healthcare is no different. Everyone is paying more for labor. And if you don't do it, you're gonna have really crappy labor. And then all of our experience when we go to the restaurants and all the new facilities are gonna be terrible. And so then we're gonna wonder why we pay for this, right? So I think it's important for us all to trust that you guys are sort of, I think, already making tough decisions and doing your best to make sure you manage the purse strings well. But I just hope we don't start nickel and diming and making short-term decisions, because I think that really is it's against kind of the goal and what we all agreed upon with this project.
Thank you.
All right, with that, Jerry, we'll move on to the next slide. Stormwater management.
Okay.
So for those of you at home, we have slides, stormwater management, potential impact items in 2023. Jerry is going to go through this.
I'm gonna sit over here because
So Jerry is placing himself next to the
two experts,
chairman of the CDD and the
Yeah.
chairman of the Heritage Bay Umbrella Association here in the room, so.
Laura Severance, president of Heritage Bay Umbrella Association, which encompasses both Heritage Bay and the Quarry. And Tim Cantwell, he is the chairperson of the CDD. And they have a heck of a lot more knowledge about this topic than I do. And as a matter of fact, the knowledge that we all have is changing by the minute. So I'm going to go through these slides, some of which may be outdated a little bit. And I would ask Laura and Tim to chime in on anything. But as an outset, the reason we're putting up these slides is we want to be totally transparent. Unfortunately, we're being transparent because we're making sausage here and it's not a pretty sight. But nevertheless, there have been a number of people that have been at CDD meetings that understand that this potential additional expense exists. And we wanted the community to understand that. What we didn't want to happen is all of a sudden an expense comes up 6, 8, 9 months from now. And everyone says, wow, that's a surprise. Why didn't you tell us? And that's not to say we're not doing everything we can to minimize the expense, but we want to explain what's going on here. And there's been ongoing discussions with the Quarry CDD Board of Supervisors regarding two specific issues. And that is, we have a serious problem, Fieldstone Lane flooding. We have a second problem or opportunity that eventually we're going to need hookups from homes to these collector boxes that the CDD will be putting in as part of phase 2 of the lake repair project. There's not proper irrigation and drainage, I guess is the right word, in a number of areas. And Tim or Laura could jump in as I mess this up. And they could explain exactly what this is, but we need to improve the drainage because water is running off certain homes. They put in downspouts or whatever, and it's going into the lake and it's creating a lot of erosion. And if we don't fix this problem, we're going to have long-term, much higher maintenance costs on the lake. And you all know what it costs to maintain that lake. So we do not want that to happen. One of the challenges in doing this, and we've been working very close to QCA and the CDD to determine who owns responsibilities for these two things that we call stormwater management and surface water management. And there are definitions of each, and the responsibilities have not been outlined. And so we're trying to get that squared up so we know who has the responsibility for each of the expenses. So neither of us are budgeting in this regard because we wouldn't know what to budget, when to budget, or how much to budget. It'll likely come into place maybe in 2023, maybe in 2024. And we're working together to see who owns these responsibilities. Excellent. Okay. Some of you may recall, and I know we have some people from Fieldstone Lane in the audience. This is near and dear to them. The CDD thought it was their responsibility to fix Fieldstone Lane. Excuse me, the previous chairperson. And what they did is fix the drainage about 1/2 Fieldstone Lane. And it works. I need a drink, hold on. Excuse me. Okay, that should help, and it works. The question is, who does the second half? And that's what Tim is going to talk about a little bit more. But we've had some homes had tremendous amount of flooding. We actually have sandbags around 2 homes to prevent water from getting into their pools, their lanais, and their homes. It's a very dangerous situation, and no one would want to be in their shoes. Okay, we will fix it. It won't happen till we get to the dry season. We think the cost to fix the remainder of Fieldstone on the slides is 50 to 100,000. As of earlier today, it could be less. It could be 35,000. This is all new information. Okay. Next slide. I'm gonna let you explain this one, if you would, Tim, so I can get a couple of drinks here. My voice, thank you.
How many here know what the CDD does? Really fully understands what CDD does. And I've lived in the community 10 years. I didn't know, other than it was a line item on my tax bill. And I thought they just collected money to pay back the municipal bond issues. So CDD in the state of Florida, and I think it's important to understand, is a special unit of government. And it was established by the state of Florida under Section 192 to protect Florida and to protect its residents. And it's typically, as it was in the case of the quarry, established by Pulte Homes, the developer. So it's the developer's way of giving assurance to the state of Florida and the people who are moving in that this thing's going to get built, it's going to get built correctly, and it's going to be funded using tax-free municipal bond issue. So our CDD in the quarry was established originally by the builder. It, just like the HOA, it ends up getting turned over as the HOA took over from Pulte. The CDD did the same. Through that process, which dates back nearly 20 years, and Laura and I and Cheryl, president of our HOA, have spent quite a bit of time researching in depth the history of how the CDD originally is originated, and we fall under something, a jurisdiction of the South Florida Water Management District. So when this community is built, it's built in a permitted fashion, and we have to engineer the entire community to manage the stormwater, manage the surface water management, which means all of the 30 lakes that you see in the community, and I'm counting all the ponds as lakes. And the South Florida Water Management District holds us to a standard to manage these. So the CDD, and through all of our research about stormwater management, surface water management, localized flooding versus regional flooding, one of the points that through my over 200 hours of research have revealed, and I've been on the CD going on 3 years now, and I'll continue as chairman at least until my term's up. But as we've dug into this, it's taken a lot of twists and turns. You know, as Pulte originally, set things up, and that got turned over, and Centex turned it over to Pulte, and our permit actually includes Heritage Bay and our community under one single permit. So you have multiple entities that are holders of the permit, but the main function of the permit and the CDD's main function is one of a macro management. We affect, as a development of regional impact, which is a legal term that this development is founded under, impacts hundreds of thousands of acres north of us, as well as thousands and thousands of acres west of us and south of us, because what we're responsible for doing is taking all that water that flows through the preserves and through Corkscrew, it comes through us. Our community basically is a big water filtration system. It then outflows the Cocohatchee Canal into the Palm River and off into the Gulf of Mexico. So the South Florida Water Management District considers everything that's done within this community to be a very vitally important regional impact area. So as we go back into the history of the CDD and Pulte, there were all kinds of crazy interlocal relationship agreements and contracts and an agreement was signed that said the CDD really didn't need to do anything to maintain and uphold the permit. We're going to give that responsibility back to the QCA. When the CDD that I was seated on a few years back, post Hurricane Irma, that's when I learned that the CDD is responsible for all of these shorelines. Started coming to the meetings just like this and asking questions and very critical of the way things were done, quite candidly. Cheryl and I sat together in a lot of these meetings. And like a lot of things, it became a point where the CDD board resigned under pressure. And Mr. Smarty Pants here, who's asking all the tough questions, ends up on the board. Now I'm Mr. Smarty Pants as the president or the chairman. So sometimes you got to wonder what you ask for. You might just get it. What we're talking about here in stormwater management and surface water management, I've dug in trying to delineate way back in 2019 when I became involved with the CDD. I met with the Heritage Bay Umbrella Association, the QCA, the golf club, and others, and had a little PowerPoint presentation I carted around with me as a new member. And I said, one of the first things we need to do is determine who does what. And I have spent the better part of this entire summer, hundreds of hours, trying to define who does what, with the help and assistance of Cheryl and Laura and our legal staff, my engineering staff. Today I was prepared. We have CDD. We meet once a month. It's a public hearing by law. The CDD board members are prohibited from discussing CDD business outside of a public hearing. So I end up having to work alone. I can talk to Jerry. Jerry and Laura and I met Thursday night to talk about this tonight. But we can't share information I might have learned with another CDD board member by law. So today I was prepared to kind of, as I put it to my legal team, my outside counsel, I was prepared to put the final nail in the coffin to determine that indeed the CDD is responsible for only the macro lakes and ponds. And the QCA is absolutely 100% unadulterated responsible for all storm water management and localized flooding, such as was experienced in Fieldstone Lane. Well, 40 minutes before the meeting, our outside counsel called me and said, wait, Tim, hold it. I just found something recorded with Collier County Courthouse. And it's a document that followed all of the documents that were on file that now blur that. So I'm not putting the final nail in the coffin. We're having to go back and do further legal research. The CDD may have jurisdiction beyond the jurisdiction that we presumed based on all the hundreds of hours of research and discussion that Cheryl and Laura and Jerry, as recent as Thursday, have had to put this presentation together. So this presentation was Cheryl authored a lot of it, and I wish she were here tonight. And our condolences to her family for her loss. I'm here really to answer any questions that you might have for the CDD, but I'm working as hard as I can to find within our budget the wherewithal to do all that we can do to benefit the community. We're all one community. The boundaries of the CDD and the residents within the jurisdiction of the CDD are all of you. It's the same people who are paying dues. So whether this has to be done through dues, whether this has to be done through the CDD, it's still coming out of the same budget. My budget as a homeowner here. And I'm doing what we can to bring these costs down. When we met on Thursday night to prepare these slides, we were talking $100,000, 100 to 200 for the downspouts. We're doing everything we can to whittle these numbers down and to gain a better understanding as to where the CDD can serve the community better and help with these issues, and we're working on that, working towards that. And, but what we want the public, Jerry wants the public, the board, HOA board wants the public to understand that not only do we have a lot of infrastructure and issues and maintenance issues within the community, but what we do at the CDD, if we fail, if we have erosion on the banks caused by downspouts, we have illicit discharges, people putting their piping for their swimming pools, that is a violation of the South Florida Water Management District permit, and we will be fined for that. What we're trying to do is to comply with all of the edicts of the permit, provide all of the maintenance and repairs that are requisite. And I have to add that no maintenance, no repairs to these shorelines have been done at all on these ponds in 20-some or 18 years, whatever. So the public knows who are not in attendance, many of you do attend our meetings. We work very, very diligently and were turned down numerous occasions by FEMA post Hurricane Irma. They told us no, no again, no again, no again. We clawed back and kept asking, persisted. Thousands of pages of documents, engineering documents, legal documents, and we were awarded a $4.65 million FEMA reimbursement that goes back to you as the homeowners. So how that money is being spent needs to be understood by everyone in the community. The first part of the money is being spent to remediate the 18 years of neglect. So we have a $2.2 million, well, $2 million budget coming from FEMA over a 2-year period to bring our shores and bring these facilities into compliance with the district. That's being spent over a 2-year period. The remainder of that money is being used to retire bond debt. As you all recall, if you lived here in 2017 to the present, there were 2 bond issues that the CDD had to issue to pay for the construction on the shoreline from the damage caused by Hurricane Irma. And the first was botched. We clawed back through lawsuits with the contractors, a bunch of that money. We got back reimbursement now from FEMA, and we completed that project and it held up quite well. In fact, all of our facilities did extremely well through Hurricane Ian. And so while our facilities were stressed, they did not fail. And that's what the CDD is here to do. So as we look at these projects, as we look at phase 2 construction, which are the improvements, one of the things that the South Florida Water Management District has mandated, if there is erosion on the shoreline, we have to fix that. It's cheaper to prevent it than it is to fix it. So we are installing at the CDD's cost in our budget collection boxes. We don't yet know because it's not fully engineered. It'll be engineered a bit on the fly because the topography is going to change. Elevations will change as we change the slope and the bank heights on many of the ponds and the lakes that we're working on. But there will be collection boxes installed so that homes can tie in their gutters to those boxes. Those boxes then will discharge underwater to the lakes to prevent any erosion. So the issue for the QCA was, what's this going to cost? If the homeowners have to pay for these downspout connections, what will it cost? And it could potentially cost $1,500 per home. So the question then becomes, well, who pays for it? My point that I keep bringing up is we don't know where they're going to be. We don't know how many they're going to be. We know that some homes will require those connections because there's very evident erosion that's taking place. In some cases, these homes may not have to tie in at all, and that'll be determined. So we're looking at ways to help the homeowners. It's private property. These are installations that will be done on homeowners' property, not CDD property, not QCA common property. So we'll have to look at each case. We'll have to judge what's the best solution. And until we have those plans, it's difficult to say. So that's what that item is. If we want to advance the slides,
That's,
okay, that's the last. So
that's the last one, and it's really the last bullet.
the last.
The last bullet that's important, that we are all working together to be the best stewards for the community.
And let me just add something on the best stewards. Sure, Laura and I spoke. She was driving during the meeting. I called her to give her an update prior to this meeting. And she brought up the point about stewardship. And the CDD is in the process of ratifying a manual, an operational manual, because we've had no written documents at all. The CDD, up until my joining, we've been working towards coming up with a process and a system in place. We're just now, after 2.5 years, evolving into a document, a manual, if you will, that the public can refer to, the QCA can refer to, that we, or any new member that would join the CDD board. We have pretty much 3 new members at this point, who need to understand what we do better. And after today's meeting, we made a few adjustments where we have a mission and a vision statement. And one word that I've added into the vision statement is to act as good stewards, and that's our goal. I will also mention, Jerry certainly reminds me of this, and I'm going to bring it up because I know he will, so I'll bring it up. We have been good stewards. The CDD has done very well with its budget. We have a budget surplus. We have some extra money. I think it's in our best, in my personal opinion, I only speak for myself. I cannot speak for the entire board who have to vote on this, that, I want to be able to use that money judiciously and with good judgment so that the whole community can benefit. And we're going to take a close look at that. We're going to continue to be good stewards of the budget so that we can do our, first and foremost, uphold the edicts of the permit. That comes first. When I left the meeting today, I had a side discussion with our engineer. If these legal documents that we found, the assignments to the CDD are, in fact, we need to plot them on a map. We need to plot all of those assets, take an inventory of those assets. But it also requires that we take an inventory of our budget and resources to service those assets. So that surplus may go away overnight as a result of some of the documents that we got today. We're going to have to service more perhaps than what we expected. So that's the message from the CDD.
Okay, so that's a fairly quick update, so everyone knows what's going on. A lot more detail than I expected, but it's important everyone understands some of the challenges. I mean, there was nothing ever spoken about the CDD, but they do a lot of good for the community. They're very involved, and they're looking for long-term best solutions at the best price, done the best way. Okay, I think we spoke enough about that one.
Yeah.
The last slide is, and this is just the slide more or less for discussion. Because there's nothing in the budget, we're not putting anything in the budget, and it
Excuse me,
really
Jerry.
wouldn't affect.
If you could read the slide as you're talking about it, because it's not getting sent out.
Oh, okay, this is not on the back. Okay, this slide is resale fees. And what the QCA board is considering is raising resale fees during the year 2023. And be subject to ongoing economic conditions, research for comparable communities, and what exactly is going on in the housing market. It's something that would require a vote to happen, so it's nothing we could do without a vote. Someone asked a great question about 2024. And when we looked at 2024, we're looking at ways we could soften possibly the blow in terms of what increases might be. And one approach is to offset continued inflation by imposing higher resale fees that would go to operating expenses. It has nothing to do with the project. I don't want people to equate the two. The other thing is, when we originally set the resale fees a couple of years ago with the project, we were looking at property values that were a certain amount. And property values, certainly for single-family homes, have gone up anywhere between 50 and 100%. And for coach homes, maybe 30 to 50%, or around that range. So this is something that we're going to be researching to see what other communities are doing. We want to fall in line, so we're competitive with other communities. Those of you who are here, remember when we did the project and we raised resale fees in 21, it was based on an analysis of all the surrounding communities and what their resale fees were. So we just want to make sure that we're competitive, we're doing things the right way, and this will be over the next couple of months, 2-3 months. And we could vote on it, Tom, right? Any time of the year, we could do a special vote on this. So when the time is right, we will do it. But we wanted to get some feedback on this. It's a town hall meeting, which means it's a two-way conversation. And we threw this up as a discussion topic. So whether you're on a Zoom or whether you're on in person, we'd like to hear what your thoughts on this. Anybody? Right now, resale fees are $5,500 per transaction. Yeah, they'll go up, they're scheduled to go up in this 23, 24, 25, 26, I think, by $1,000.
No questions on Zoom.
I mean, we bring it up because we're looking for help and feedback. And I understand you're seeing it for the first time, so you probably have to think about it. Okay, if you want to reserve a comment and think about it maybe later, why don't we switch to John and the project?
All right, I just ask for everyone's patience while I try to reset the computer here. Hey, John, are you still on?
I'm here, Scott.
All right, let me see what I can do here. Hey, John, can you see that?
I can put it in full screen mode. It should work.
Yeah, you have a lot of trust in me. I think we're gonna go with that, John.
Yeah.
Okay. We, as I found out in doing all the meetings in the past, technology is your friend and your enemy all at the same time. So let's go ahead and give it a try. Go ahead and jump to that second slide, please. I've been reporting, I think every month in our newsletter, our communication team tries to really spend a good deal of time
giving you a good update every month on the project. So continue to pay attention to our newsletters. We see a high percentage of you looking at it every month, so we appreciate that. We also do update at every board meeting. First, so some of this stuff may feel a bit repetitive because I did a presentation on the board meeting just a week ago. Hurricane Ian resulted in minor damage to the Lakeside Pavilion, a tear in one of the screens, minor damage to the Q-Bar roof, which is going to get some work anyhow, some landscaping damage and debris cleanup. Labor issues continue. Now it's being impacted by Ian cleanup and rebuild. All our contractors in Southwest Florida have got 10 times the amount of work that they could possibly want. As of today, we got most of our key contractors back to work. Our building supply chain is also seeing significant shortages again. We believe those will be likely short term. We do still continue to see long lead items on some items. We're trying to be proactive and order things far in advance. Go ahead. Budget, I've been reporting this for the last month or so. The budget remains at 18.67. We've used about half our contingency. And when I say used, I'm going to explain that in just a second. So we got about half remaining. We keep the contingency really in sort of two buckets. We have a bucket that's actually approved signed change orders, but we also, in that 50%, we're anything that we see coming down the track, we're keeping track of that, and that's included in our 50% number. So no surprises. We think we're in a good place. It is challenging. I can't tell you that it'd be simple. And every month we have discussions about every one of the spending decisions and what's the right thing to do. So go ahead, move on. Schedule outlook. Phase 2 overall schedule is good. Our elevator install started on December 10th. I'm going to show you some pictures in a second, and is scheduled to be completed by November 11th. The other one I mentioned last meeting was the folding wall. It's due in late October. It's only about 1 week to install. The third thing I mentioned was the site work getting done. We have to have all our sidewalks in. We have to have all the landscaping in to get our occupancy process started. So the way it looks, we open in December, could be the first week, could be the third week. Just depends on how these things go with the county. Phase 3 expansion the footers are scheduled to pour this week. They're out there working. This is actually about a 3+ week delay because of Ian. We were ready to do that right before Ian hit. We pulled the crews off the project, put them on work to secure the job site. And then, as you can see, we had trouble getting everybody back to work. We are going to reassess our timeline based on that. I can't tell you today if we can make up the time. Again, what Scott had said, we're planning a June 22 opening for Phase 3 of the Beach Club. Okay. These are slides I showed last week, just showing our sports courts are complete. Go ahead, next slide. Wellness Center, I showed this last week. This is a comparison from July 7th to October 7th to see the progress that's been made. Go ahead, next slide. This is a new slide. This is showing some of the internal work that's done. You can see the flooring's gone in the stairwell. The bathrooms, you can see are tiles in. You see the shower in the background. Toilets are going in. Sinks are going in. So the bathrooms are progressing nicely. Go ahead. So that thing on the left is an elevator. And guess what? The frame and thing is already all in. What we got to do is build walls around it and complete it, connect it, etc. So good first week on that elevator. I actually saw it go up and down, so it actually moves. So good start there. The right is the lobby, main lobby, right there. Yep. So this is the first floor these are the two motion rooms. They're two 900 square foot rooms. They're going to be, this is where that divider wall is going to go. As you can see, July 7th on the left, and then October 7th on the right. This week you see a few more ceiling tile in, but it's making great progress. It will be ready shortly. We have the flooring ready to go down. We're just waiting to get some of the other drywall, et cetera, off the floor. Go ahead. This is the second floor. Again, July 7th, and that slide is actually this morning. What happened over the last week is we finished the grid structure on the ceilings. The lights you can see are popped in. Good progress continues. It's a very big, wide open space. This will be our fitness center portion of the wellness center. This picture is also from today. There's the Q Cafe. It's delivered on the one side of the bocce courts. There's Chef Ron inside the trailer with all his nice equipment. Go ahead. Next one, this is inside the beach club looking out. You see those 4 columns, there are actually 5, I believe, but we took them out. You can see on the bottom right what it looks like opened up. We also are we have put in a structural beam across the top of the header there. So most of those pillars, most of them will come out as well to open up the views from inside the beach club. Go ahead. So this is this morning. You can see the footers dug, and they're actually pitching water on them because we had rain last night. Again, should be pour later this week. You can see the guys are out there. I don't know, there's a crew of 5 or 6 working this morning on that. Okay. For all of you hadn't seen, this is looking sort of from behind the pool, looking back at the Q bar. Before you can sort of see where our deck ended, and now you can see how much we've added soil and have expanded. So this will be the pool deck expansion that's coming. Go ahead. On the far east end of the pool is where the lakeside bath and paddle will go. You can see the change in the last 3 months, and you can see the pads ready to go, and that will also pour shortly. That we had to dig down, I think it was 5 or 6 feet because we got a bad soil test. We had to rebuild it up so it would hold the structure. Okay. So always want to recognize our homeowner volunteers who give tirelessly to our community to ensure a bright future for tomorrow and beyond. There's so many folks. I'll try to do it in continued newsletters. We'll try to, Jody and team who helps us with comms, we'll try to give you some more information on who they are and what they've done. But I can tell you, we get great homeowner support. We get great volunteers, including saving us some money, and we'll show you that in an upcoming newsletter. Safety remains job one. We want to emphasize this is a construction site. It is absolutely off limit to all homeowners. It is dangerous. In fact, one of the things we're going to probably send out later this week is being very careful. Do not go in and turn around in the circle. We've tried to market saying it's a construction zone, but I'm one of those that's had a flat down there, and you're going to get flats. Don't go down in that end of the parking. We are planning to do tours of the wellness center once it's safe to do so. We still got too much overhead work being done. Probably sometime early to mid-November. That's all I got. And glad to take on any questions if anybody has any.
Any questions from the folks in the room? On Zoom, we have a couple more questions if we want to answer those. Yes, okay. Anonymous attendee was very disappointed, is not able to have the availability of slides via Zoom. We will be sending out and asked if we tested the technology. We did test it. Unfortunately, it didn't work. as I went to turn it on at 5 o'clock. But we will be sending out these slides so that everyone has them. Len has a question about resale fees. Are the resale fees specifically the charge to an existing quarry homeowner that purchases another residence in the community? If so, I'd rather see an increase to the activity fee from $600 to $1,000 to $1,000. This places a revenue source on outside parties as opposed to increases charges to the existing homeowners. With 50 new sales per year, this would generate an additional $20,000 annually.
That's 15.
Resale fee is for people coming
Yep, so resale fee is for the people coming in. So Len, I would encourage you to talk to Jerry some more to get clarifications, because that's where I send all the questions is to Jerry. He's available on tennis courts 2 from 9 a.m. to 11 every Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Not up in your speechless, Jerry.
Has there been any consideration for resale fee to be based on sales amount? You just stated that single family residents have gone up considerably more than coach homes. Maybe single family fee 10,000, coach 5,000, or make a flat percentage of the sales amount.
That's a great question, and we actually had this conversation, Cheryl and I, with all the presidents from the coach homes, the 4 presidents, last week. We've also had this conversation with our attorney to make it a percent of the resale value, which we can't do. You cannot charge a different amount for different homeowners. But what the attorney, after a couple of years of asking the question, finally said, if we want and we could get it in the bylaws voted upon, what we could do is a 2-tier structure where, say, coach homes would be one price and single family homes another price, reflecting that coach homes typically sell for less than a single family home. You know, our most expensive single family home sold for, I think, 3.9 million, which is different than a coach home that sells for 500,000. Now, that's one side of the argument, debate, discussion. The other side is whether you talk amenity fees or resale fees, it gets very confusing, especially on amenity fees. Regardless of where you live, everyone uses the amenity fees to the amount they want to use. So to try to separate a fee, say an amenity fee, for someone that lives in a house that may have a higher value than someone in a coach home, they're still using the amenities the same amount. So is that equitable? So that's a question. The other thing is that we debated, discussed was, if you have one fee for coach homes, there are coach homes that are sold at a higher price than some of the smaller single family homes. So we have a coach home that, what, 890,000, Julie? 981. And we certainly have single family homes without a pool that have gone for less than that. So it's very hard to make a blanket statement that coach homes sell for less than single family homes when we have a number of single family homes that I know are 1,800 square feet. Do we have any smaller than 1,800 square feet for a single family? That's the smallest. And if they don't have a pool or larger than the prices aren't all that different depending on location. So it's a complicated issue. And that's why we are discussing it to try to get all views on it. So obviously no decisions have been made.
Thank you, Jerry. I appreciate that. One last question. Mark writes, is gym closing before new one open? Sorry if I missed this question. We will be closing the current fitness center on November 1st. And then we will be reopening the new wellness building, hopefully early December. So there will be about a 30-day to 45 delay lag with no fitness center. I know that Tina has some options. I believe she'll be sending out an email later on this week, just outlining those options, whether it's Twin Eagles. I think some other options as well may be available. So she'll help you make sure that you get your fitness fix in when you need to. With that, Joe, turning the meeting back over to you.
Thank you all for coming for this. That's a lot to take in. So I'm gonna make a motion that we adjourn this meeting. And the time is
6:50.
6:48.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you, everyone.